Hello and welcome. I'm Julie Fogel, the Director of Marketing at Kiriworks, and I'll be your host for today's webinar, 10 Ways Streamlined Payer Contracting Gives You a Competitive Advantage. Thanks for taking your time to join us to learn about how healthcare payer organizations can more effectively recruit and retain providers, and why streamlining the overall processes that support network development gives your healthcare payer organization the edge in today's competitive market. Before I introduce today's presenters, just one quick housekeeping item. As you watch this on-demand webinar, if you have questions or comments that you'd like our speakers to address, we're more than happy to do so. Simply reach out to our presenters using the contact information found on our closing slide. Without further ado, let me introduce you to today's speakers who will walk us through the enhancements we've made to our network development and contracting product. Zach Tabor is Kiriworks Manager of Product Development. He manages a team of engineers and developers who build applications and repeatable solutions for businesses that are both intuitive and easy to use. John Swisher also joins us today. As the Vice President of Sales, John is responsible for the management and direction of Kiriworks sales and marketing efforts, providing strategic insight and driving synergy between Kiriworks sales and product teams to bring solutions to market that meet the needs of our clients and prospects. Collectively, Zach and John bring more than 25 years of experience with Highland Software's OnBase platform, which serves as the foundation for the solutions Kiriworks designs and builds for our customers. Let's get started.
Thanks, Julie. And for those of you on the line attending today, you might be thinking, what is NDC? You might have heard us use this acronym from time to time, or you might be hearing us say something like provider contracting. But what NDC actually stands for is Network Development and Contracting. Meaning, not only do you have the provider contracting as a part of the overall solution, but you also have your recruitment aspect or the network development portion, if you will, as well as an onboarding aspect after the provider has been successfully contracted. And this webinar is actually the first in a series dedicated to NDC, or our Network Development and Contracting Accelerator. And I figured I would bring Zach in to talk about all of the recent enhancements his team has made to this solution. But before we go through all of those various enhancements, Zach, can you tell us a little bit about the product team, what they do, and what their goals here are at Kiriworks?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, John. Thanks for including me in this webinar to allow us to talk about our products and the enhancements that we've made to NDC. But before we get into those enhancements, I really want to talk about what our product goals are as a product team when we are developing and delivering products, but then also adding enhancement to them. So when we actually develop products and add enhancements to them, the main thing that we want to make sure that we're doing is listening to our customers. We never want to just see or think that we know what's going on in the market as our product development team and say, oh, I think people need this feature or need that feature. We really need to listen to our customers and see what the demand is for these specific products and new enhancements that lead and make it into the product. And then with listening to those customers, the other things that we'd like to focus on when we develop these products is to make businesses more efficient. And then within making businesses more efficient and using these products is ultimately it's the end users that use the products day to day, that we want to make their day to day easier. We all know we have more than enough responsibilities to do day to day in work and at home. So when you come to work and use one of our products, we want to make sure that it's an enjoyable experience and making your work life that much easier. So with that being said, I want to dive into the enhancements that we made for NDC that John was talking about earlier. And we kind of categorize these into three different categories, being power for the end users, the workforce landscape, and the end user efficiency. And the first one we're going to talk about here is the power for end users. And what does it mean when I say power for end users? basically we want our end users to be able to control the solutions themselves. We try to remove IT as much as we can away from the product, so the businesses can actually take ownership of their own processes and make changes when they need to. Meaning, I know with a lot of solutions out there today, if you need a change made for your process because your process changed, or just need a minor tweak change to the solution, a lot of times you have to make a request to IT. IT has to review that request, and they might not get to that minor change for your solution for anywhere from 3, 6, 12 weeks of wait time to get those changes in place. So we want to put the power in the end user's hands or the business's hands to make those changes themselves. So within this category, we have a few different enhancements we're going to talk about. One being the administration and system setting. Next being a feature that we call the notification builder. And then finally, the contract reviewer templates. So the first thing we're going to dive into is the administration and system settings. So within administration and system settings, you have the ability as a admin or a power user in the system, is you have the access to this record within NDC. And this record actually gives you a lot of power and configurability within the solution itself. One of them being is you get to determine the primary client that you would like to use and work with within the solution. So OnBase has two primary clients that this solution is built on. It's a Unity client and a web client. So now it used to be only supported within the Unity client for this specific product, but now we've expanded it out to the web client, and you get to choose what your users would like to use from a client standpoint and how they would actually access the solution. The next section would be the administration section. So easily update configuration points. So we built a lot for our implementation team and then also for our customers, because if they have multiple environments with this solution in it, one being test and one being prod, they can actually make those configurations directly within the system settings themselves, rather than having to reach out to IT to make those changes throughout the back end of the solution. And then lastly is packet generation options. So this is actually how the settings determine how portions of the solution should function. So this has to do with our addendum and amendment configurations. And when you're generating those contract packets for those addendum or amendments, how you'd like to generate those packets. So if you want to prompt the end user on what documents to include in the packet, include all documents from the parent contract or the child contract, or only create a packet using the amendment or addendum documents only. So giving you that power to control how you want your solution and how you want the product to work that fits best for your end users in your business.
And Zach, thanks for walking through some of these initial settings. When I look at items like this and I see something like the primary client, that's something that is incredibly useful, but a lot of times folks may not have a full understanding of why that option exists. And I know there's a lot, right? But for me personally, this is a huge improvement, simply because, as we all know, with any application that we use, there are slight differences between the web client or the web version, and whether it be the mobile app version or the one that's installed locally on your machine. They behave slightly differently. So not only does, selecting this dropdown select the appropriate client for your organization, but it also modifies the workflow processes to fit that client, because they do differ just slightly between the two clients. So what this ultimately does is very easily allow you to switch back and forth, or even just during your initial implementation, choose one easily, as opposed to going through various different configuration items. And the same thing goes for the doc pop and object pop, as well as the addendum and amendments, because right below that drop down you have there, Zach, are the descriptions of the behavior that each one of these will work. So that, if I'm correct, the solution comes configured with all of these. We're just simply allowing our engineers, when they're installing it or after it's installed, for those end users to easily make those changes themselves, right?
Yeah, exactly. So if it gets installed one way and you're like, oh yeah, let's prompt the end user so they can determine how they want to generate that packet. And then downstream later on, you're like, oh, well, I actually don't want to prompt our end users. I want to make sure I'm generating all those documents from the parent contract to the child contract, and that's included in that packet. Well, instead of reaching out to IT to go make that change and find that configuration within the logic, you can just come to this administration screen, make that change right here via the dropdown, and then moving forward, that's how the solution is going to work.
That's great. I can't wait to see the rest of them back.
Perfect. All right, so the next one in the power to the end users section, what we call a notification builder. So before we actually get into the actual configuration, how this actually works, I kind of want to discuss a scenario of NDC that can occur when you're going through the contracting phase. So in the contracting phase, you're onboarding a new provider, and then within that onboarding, you generate the contract that they're going to review. And after you generate that contract, you need to send that contract to them for negotiation. But in order to send that contract to them, we want to send them an email that gives them access to a folder online, which we use ShareBase to share those documents between the external parties and our system. And then when we send that document over to that provider for negotiation, we want to send a notification to them with saying what they need to do to go ahead and access that document, redline it, and then send it back. So what an option that we heard from our customers that they would like to see is they would like the option when they send over those documents to be negotiated, or anytime they're in communication with that external party, that they want to control those that notification message, but they also want to dynamically pull in data into those notifications directly from that contract object. So it fits to that external party's need. So this picture here is the actual email itself that would actually get sent over to that external party saying they have a document ready for them to view. And then in the center there, in the bold text, you can see the message that the end user wrote to send that notification out, and it gives them their contract ID and then the actual recruiter or contract owner in that email notification. But what's neat about this and what we did with the notification builder is to give you that customability of those notifications that you want to send to the external party, is we built this notification builder. So I'm going to show you how that's configured here right now. But this is giving power back into the hands of the business to configure these notifications and then customize those messages to those specific external parties, and then dynamically populating those notifications with data from the application itself. So let's take a look at how that's actually configured. So in the solution, we have a item called a notification template. So you can configure these notification templates to give you a library of notifications that your end users can choose from. So this is an example of a initial negotiation. So when I'm sending that contract over for the initial negotiation for that external party, this might be an option as a end user that I might want to select as a notification I want to use. So in the first section is our notification template details, where you can give it a name and a description, and then a status of the notification template itself. So this one's called initial negotiation. So this would probably be a very popular one that I would send over in the initial negotiation phase of the contract process. I gave it a quick description of initial negotiation notification, and then set the status to active. So if it was set to not be active, this notification wouldn't be selectable from the end users to use. And then right beneath that is we have our message. So the message is of what the message would be sent in that actual notification. So you can see it says, hello, here's the contract DDs ready for review. And then in that message, you'll actually see these open carets and closed carets with where it says related entity name, contract ID, recruiter name. Well, those are actually placeholders. So you can insert those placeholders into these messages, and that data or those placeholders are going to be dynamically populated with that contract data that you're working off of to send to make sure you're populating this message with that contract data, and then that will be sent in that message or in that notification. So these notification templates can be created. So now you can have a library of these notification templates to select from for your end users when they need to send notifications to that external party. And then also when you select a placeholder, you can insert that placeholder into the message as well. So what does it look like from the end user's point of view? So that was the template where administrators and power users or select users can actually create those templates and build out that notification library. But what does it look like for the end user? So as an end user, I have a contract that's been drafted, it's ready to go, and I want to send it to negotiation for that external provider. So I'm getting ready to send it to negotiation and send out that email. I'm gonna get prompted with this notification builder screen. And as an end user, I'm gonna decide which notification I wanna send to that specific external party. So I have the option to select the notification type. So a radio button to select to use a custom or pre-built notification template. So right now you can see I have selected to use a pre-built notification template, which would then allow me to select a notification from that notification library to see which message that I want to send to that external party. So you can see here I selected the notification that we were showing you on the previous screen of that initial notification, and then it will show me in a read-only fashion what the message of that notification template is, so I know as the end user what's ultimately going to be sent to that specific external party. However, as the end user, I'm like, I like this message, but I might want to customize a little bit or add my own flair to that notification or to that message. So as the end user, I have the ability to customize this pre-built message. So this option will allow you to modify the pre-built notification for this interaction. So if I select this button to customize pre-built message, the screen's going to change to select the notification type of custom, and it's going to pull across what that initial notification template message was. So you can see here, selecting the custom notification type, and then you can see the custom notification message pulled across that template data. And now it's not in the read-only format. So as an end user, I can modify this message to the way that I see fit for this specific external party. And then also, if I still want to populate this with dynamic data, I can still enter custom placeholders into this specific notification message, and then I can insert that value. So you can see here, as the end user, I selected to use that custom placeholder of recruiter email, and then I insert the value, and then I put that recruiter's email at the bottom of that message, being zach.tabor@kiriworks.com.
So Zach, I mean, when I look at this, a lot of people probably think, okay, cool, we've made email a little bit easier, but it goes a lot further than that. In that, if we simply were just writing an email, we would open up Outlook and we would type it out. But the main purpose of all of this is to share those documents or those contracts with the provider in a secure manner. And we're utilizing our enterprise file sync and share solution, ShareBase, with that. And something as small as an email like this, you may think, yeah, it may save me a minute or two here and there, but imagine saving a minute here or two for every single provider that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, or every contract that you're administering, and that becomes a very large amount. And being able to save these and reuse them in a sense with placeholders, to where we know that the provider or entity name, the contract ID, the recruiter name, all of those variables are going to come across easily, 100% correct, because we're not typing them in, we're inserting values, and we're never needing to reference another application to go and send this out. We're all doing it right here. Correct, Zach?
That's exactly correct. Yeah, and I think a big win to mark on or reiterate is just how these notifications will dynamically populate based off that contract data, like you said. So you don't have to, they're not going to fat finger anything. You can just insert those placeholders into these notification messages, And then when those notifications get sent out, you'll be able to see that the data is dynamically filled based off the solution data. And then something, I don't know if you guys caught in the notification template screen, but as an admin, when I'm creating these, just to make sure that these placeholders are working, or I want to make sure that it's populating with the correct data and it looks correct, you can actually preview these notification messages as well before you mark them active for the rest of the organization to use. Okay. So the next section we're going to talk about in the power to the end user section is reviewer templates. So before we dive into the reviewer templates, I just want to go over within the NDC solution, we have the concept of creating a contract template. So you can create contract templates and create, like from before with the notification templates, create a library of contract templates. So when a contract comes through and you don't want to enter in everything by hand or manually, we can use these contract templates to generate those contracts and automatically generate the contracts, the documents themselves automatically from these contract templates. So this is something that's been in NDC for a long time, and a lot of customers have been successfully using. But we wanted to expand that out a little bit, because a lot of times when these contracts instances would be created from a contract template, it's great. We get the contract document created. We get extra data and extra documents that automatically spawn for that contract object. But what customers are missing is like, yeah, I get to the internal review phase, and now each time I get to that internal review phase, I need someone to review these contracts before signature. I have to go and create the contract reviewer and set who should be reviewing these and set that all up manually. I wish I could do that within the contract template itself. So we've been listening, and that's when we added the contract reviewers and rate sheet reviewers to the contract template directly. So now when a contract instance is being generated from a contract template, and you have the contract reviewer or rate sheet reviewer on that contract template, these will automatically get pulled over into that contract instance. So it's one less step where the end users have to manually enter in data or manually add those contract reviewers. These will get pulled across automatically from the contract template. So ability to add reviewer templates on the contract templates, and then when a contract is created via a template, the reviewers will be assigned to the contract automatically.
Wow. So if I'm understanding this correctly, Zach, depending on the type of contract, we can preset our required reviewers, and that could even be based off of something like specialty or provider type. We can do them in a concurrent or sequential sequence, as many as we'd like, and then we can also modify them for one-off use if needed, correct?
Correct. Yep, that's exactly right.
Wow. So, okay, that's great. So, using the example here, let's say that, Riga puts in their 2 weeks and they're going to start at another organization. Something like this makes it pretty easy for us to simply take Riga out, replace Riga with potentially Ian or Dan from the rate sheet or whoever is replacing Riga. And then any new contract that gets created, that new reviewer will automatically be part of that review sequence, right?
Yep, that's exactly right, John.
Perfect.
Awesome. So that completes our review of our power of the end user section. And now we're going to get into the workforce landscape. So with the workforce landscape, we know this has been a changing landscape quite a lot recently, with a lot of people working from home and then people coming back to work and doing hybrids, but also people staying remote. People want to work wherever and whenever they can. And we hear that loud and clear, and we want to make sure that we're allowing people to do that as well within our products. So with the workforce landscape section, we wanted to make sure that people are allowed to do that. So we made this product compatible with the web client. So all you need is a browser and a URL, and then you'll be able to access the solution with your credentials. and be able to use this product or solution wherever you decide work fits you best. So with the web client capability, you can see here that you can access the solution directly from the web client just using a browser, put in the URL to that solution, and then enter in your credentials, and you can start working within the NDC solution itself. But another thing we want to point out, it's the same record interface. So whether you, like before we were talking about the primary clients, whether you're using the web client or using a Unity client, it's going to be the same record interface for each client across the platform. So no matter how you're using the solution, it's going to work and look the same, so you don't get confused on how you're using the solution or what client you need to be in to do a certain feature. It's going to be working the same throughout, or looking the same throughout.
So not only are we allowing folks that, you know, let's say that their work machine is a desktop, right? They're not taking that home if they need to work from home, and if they have a laptop, you know, doesn't really matter, but the web client is light, right? It's not installed on the end user machine. So you can literally access it from anywhere. And Zach, I don't think you mentioned this, but the web client's supported by, you know, all the major browsers, whether it be Edge or Firefox or Chrome. And again, the same interface is available for those that are familiar with the solution, but the big difference here is that as opposed to going after what we call your tasks on the right, and you can see like whether it be send a negotiation or send a QA or a signature, those are typically at the top in our other client. That's about the only big change. And then what is along the top here is actually a much more simplified and less busy interface, as you will, for your end users. So one of the things that we did here, besides, you know, the ability to work anywhere, was a less cluttered interface. And one of the ways that we were able to accomplish that here, well, Zach's team was able to accomplish, was by making sure that we have full functionality within the web client here, and easily giving our engineers or your end users the ability to switch from web client to Unity or vice versa.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure whatever fits your organization the best and your end users the best, is we have the option for them to work how they see fit. Okay. So we talked about the workforce landscape, and now we're going to get into more end user efficiency. So this goes along with kind of making end users day-to-day easier using the NDC solution. So what we're going to get into with the end user efficiency are reminders that we added, the DocuSign certificate and completion portion, provider data management, and then amendments and addendums section. So the first thing we're going to dive into is the reminders. So throughout the NDC solution, we added the abilities to allow end users to create reminders. So now they don't have to write things in a separate OneNote or try to remember things in their head, and then they get pulled into other things or get distracted by other things because there's so many notifications and distractions nowadays. Is we just say, put the reminders in the solution, let the solution remind you when you need to do something regarding that specific contract or work item or opportunity that you're working, and then you'll get that reminder and be able to come back into the solution directly from that reminder. You can access the solution directly. And then also within the reminders, if you just need to remind yourself, you can do that. Or you can also add extra email addresses. So if you need to remind someone else that you might be waiting on, or a reminder for someone else along with yourself, you can go ahead and do that as well. So just give the reminder a title, add a reminder date, and that's the date you would actually get the reminder sent to yourself and the other people that were added via the email address.
Yeah, and again, you know, when we look at this at surface level, this potentially looks like something, hey, great, this is a nice little feature. But, you know, when we dive in a little bit further, For me personally, I do utilize a lot of applications where it does allow me to add notes to a case or an object, or maybe even a reminder. But man, when I use an application that does not have those, for me personally, it's frustrating, because whether or not I'm writing myself a reminder, and I know for those of you listening right now, some of you are probably like me and have a stack of Post-its across their monitor and across their desk for those applications. And even more so, if I'm asking a team member of mine to follow up on an opportunity or whatever it may be, I'm typically sending them a reminder to do so via email, and it isn't on the opportunity or the contract. So I've essentially lost that almost reminder to myself to even follow up if I need to. Putting both the reminders and messages in here allows you to keep all of it in one application, see the history of it, follow up, and then lastly, keep all of that for historical and potentially even audit purposes.
Perfect. Yep. Yeah, that's exactly the thought, John. Okay, so next section we're going to talk about is DocuSign and the certificate of completion. So our product fully supports electronic signatures with DocuSign. So when you need to get signatures on those specific contracts, you can go and send them directly through DocuSign, and then that external party will get an email from DocuSign that's saying that the document is ready for the signature, and then they can sign those documents directly from DocuSign. Very, very nice experience using DocuSign within the solution itself. However, a lot of our customers are like, yeah, it's great we get to use DocuSign, but when people sign using DocuSign, there's a certificate of completion that goes along with that signature itself. And we want a way to bring that back into our solution, into our product, so you can see all those certificate of completions and you have that full audit history of those signed documents. So with that request, that's what you're seeing here. We have the ability to pull back those certificate of completions for those signed contracts, and then we store those certificate of completions directly into the solution, so you can access them whenever you need to.
And so Zach, this last little bit here was almost the cherry on top, if you will, for the entire DocuSign integration. So as you were saying before, not only is it at the time that we need to send this out for signature, it's popping it up for the end user. Signatures should be in the right places. It's really just put up there as a just in case for review for the end user before they hit submit. And then DocuSign is really taking care of everything for us until it comes back in, right?
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Perfect.
Okay. This next one was I would say it's a pretty big enhancement to our overall provider suite of solutions. But since we're talking about NDC, I want to talk about it for NDC specifically. So now a part of NDC, a part of the solution is a provider data management solution. So what this gives us the ability to do is access provider data directly from the solution. So if you don't have a PDM solution and you're keeping track of providers in various data sources, and you want to, maybe it's not the best fit for your organization right now when tracking provider data, well, we have a solution within our provider data management solution. So you can start storing your provider data within our provider data management solution directly. However, there's also another side of that where you might be already using a provider data management solution that lives in another database, but you still want to hook up to our provider data management solution so you can see the holistic view of that specific provider, and being connected to NDC, see all the contracts related to that provider as well. Well, we have that option as well, so we can hook up to your provider data management externally and pull in that data in a read-only fashion, so your end users can still see that holistic view of the provider and all their data, but also start seeing all the contracts related to that specific provider as well. And then also with our provider data management solution is we have a integration with the NPES MPI registry to populate that provider data. So maybe you're using this provider data management as your source of truth for your provider data, and you need to create a new provider into your provided data management solution. Well, since we have an integration with the MPI registry, we can do some of the heavy lifting of data input for you. So you have the ability to look up a provider directly from our solution, enter in the NPI or enter in their first name, last name, or maybe the location, their primary office location. And then what we do, since we're integrated with NPES, we'll bring back data from NPES. And when you select a provider from that integration, we'll go ahead and start pre-populating some of that data for you directly from the MPI registry, leaving you to fill out other data that might not have been populated from the NPI registry. And then since this provider data management kind of spans across our whole provider suite, that allows you to give your end users and management a holistic view of that provider data and the associated contracts with that provider. So now you're not just storing the provider data and specific maybe associated organizations they're a part of, or their specialties and facilities and locations that they might be a part of, but you're also able to see all of the contracts that they might have in place through, since it's the provider data management comes with the NDC solution.
Now, Zach, I appreciate you making sure and getting all of this onto one slide because, as you said, this is a pretty big one. I almost feel like this feature could almost be a webinar in itself, but I'm going to try and recap what I heard into a couple bullet points. First one is, if you're already using a PDM or not, doesn't matter. We can be your source of truth, or we can simply utilize this as our translation layer from your source of truth to our application. That's kind of the first part. The second part is, because of our integration with the NPI registry, we're limiting the amount of data that a user's inputting, plus we're validating our existing against that NPI data or the registry data. And then lastly, regardless of whether or not you're utilizing Kiriworks for your network development and contracting, or maybe your credentialing aspect or your provider outreach, the provider data management aspect of our solutions ties into each of those different accelerators so that you do have a single source of truth between them. Again, whether or not you're utilizing one or our entire provider suite, this does become your translation layer or source of truth for all of those downstream accelerators.
Yeah, exactly. And John, I couldn't agree with you more. This could definitely be its own webinar. There's so many things going on with the provider data management solution, but we just want to make sure we added into this webinar so you could see that it being with NDC and how it works with NDC and kind of getting that holistic view of the provider data. And then since it's with NDC, being able to see those associated contracts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll be deep diving into that a little bit more in a follow-up webinar as well.
Awesome. Okay, last one we want to talk about is amendments and addendums. So with this feature, we now allow the ability to create an amendment or addendum from a contract itself. So you can see here on the right-hand side, I have the option to create an amendment or addendum. And then this gives the ability to add child contracts as amendments or addendums to the contract itself. So once I hit create amendment or addendum, it'll be processed. The amendment or addendum will be processed through the standard contract process. And then you can see here that once I hit that button, you can now see a child contract section on that parent contract. And then you can see that amendment is now in that draft status. So it can start being processed as through that standard contract process itself.
Yeah, I mean, for lack of a better description, contracts are complicated, and you need a management tool to be able to create them, track them, and manage them. And this is simply a feature that allows us to easily create child contracts if necessary, but more importantly, associate them back to the parent automatically, so that that's zero concern to your end users. Let the system do the hard work of the association and the relations, and let your end users focus on what you hired them to do and administer and processing those contracts.
Yeah, so pulling that back to our end user efficiency theme is just trying to, as we bring in enhancements and new features and functionality to our products, is anything we can do to make your end users day-to-day easier. We'll be looking to add those to our solutions for future enhancements as well and future releases.
Perfect. So, Zach, we went over a lot of different items here today. First and foremost, we now know what NDC means. It's not just provider contracting, it's recruiting, it's the provider contracting aspect, it's the onboarding, it's the management and administration of existing contracts and renewals, and so on and so forth. And we learned a little bit about the product team today, thanks to Zach. I really appreciate Zach jumping on here and walking through, the team's enhancements that they've made to this particular accelerator. And, whether it's originating from, listening to our customers, or, just trying to make the business that much more efficient, or making the, the end users day-to-day easier, that is the team's goal.
Thank you for that information, Zach and John. I actually have a couple of questions that our viewers may also be interested in hearing the answers to. So if you'll indulge me, I'm curious. So how do payers get all of these, their active contracts into this system? What does that effort look like?
Yeah, it's a good question, Julie. And, there's a couple different good answers to that, right? Obviously, if you're looking at a platform like this, you probably need some help and some organization with those contracts, right? So depending on where you're at, we may have a couple of different flavors for you, but let's say that right now you're very typical and you're storing all of your contracts in a network file share. Chances are you have some type of naming convention, hopefully, on the file name or the folders. Well, fortunately, within OnBase, we can take advantage of file name structure, file foldering structure, and bring those documents in and extract some of that metadata off of values like that, so that we come with a fresh start. Secondarily, this is a conversation that can be a lot longer, but the other half of this is the process for which you're bringing those in, right? So whether or not you're doing a full back file as part of your implementation, or you have more of a process to where, hey, when we are pulling those files, we are digitizing them and then bringing them into the Kiriworks solution. We have plenty of experience with all of those different scenarios. So please give us a call and we can walk you through a scenario that fits the situation that you're in today, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. I heard you mention, electronic signatures. There are a couple different vendors on the market. Do they have to use DocuSign? Can they use something else?
No, it's a great question as well. So again, the solution does come configured with the DocuSign integration right out of the box. Now, fortunately, a new integration has been made available. The integration for Adobe e-signature is also available. And then, of course, in the situation that you're still doing wet signatures, you have that option out of the box with the Kiriworks accelerator as well.
So obviously today's session, we're talking about provider contracts, but can the system process non-provider contracts, other types of contracts?
Yeah, absolutely. And, just like any other organization, Julie, you're going to have contracts that aren't provider related, right? Potentially with your new vendor, Kiriworks, for example. So a lot of the organizations that are utilizing our NDC solution today, what we found out when we were first kind of walking through this with them is that, your typical contract solution for maybe like your vendors, like you would use with us, they do not require or collect or even have the space or the process for the unique intricacies of a provider contract, right? So not only does the Kiriworks Accelerator allow you to process for those provider contracts, but additionally, we do offer a contract lifecycle management more for your vendor and non-provider type contracts. And it is very common for organizations we work with to utilize both of those at the same time.
That's great. Well, thank you, John. And this brings us to the end of today's session. I'd like to thank both Zach Tabor and John Swisher for sharing their insight with us. And again, if you have questions or comments that you have, please use the information on your screen to contact us. And if you enjoyed today's topic, please share this webinar with your colleagues by sending them the link to our YouTube channel. On behalf of Kiriworks, I thank each of you for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.